What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswaves. So Last of Us Part 2 released on Friday, and it's probably the most controversial release of the year, straight up. Maybe of the generation. I don't know. We'll see about that when we get to the end of it, but turns out it sold pretty well, at least from the initial sales reports we're getting in the UK, and I was very curious how this game was going to do overall in terms of sales, and it turns out it is breaking sales records in the UK. We're going to go over that today, and also it looks like we have some game reveals to look forward to this week, starting today with a new Smash character, and that's right, Crash Bandicoot 4. Oh, and Nintendo might be moving away from cell phone games, at least for the time being. As always, guys, if you've enjoyed these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit the red subscribe button down below as we head towards 500,000 subscribers. And we're gonna start today with that Smash character. They had tweeted out at the end of last week that we were going to see the new ARMS character in Smash today. In fact, it'll be live in just a few hours, but then they tweeted something else out, which I thought was kind of funny, mostly because it went along with the conversation that was going on online at the time. You can see that tweet here saying, "Don't miss tomorrow's live stream at 7 a.m. Pacific, revealing the next Smash Bros. Ultimate Fighter from ARMS. By the way, the video was filmed entirely from Mr. Sakurai's home." That's right. People were wondering, oh, is this going to be in Sakurai's home? Is that where this is going to be done? Yeah, so we'll get a glimpse at Sakurai's house. Maybe he'll have his some of his game collection out. We'll see. It'll be very interesting, really, to go from an office setting for Sakurai to like an actual house. People are pretty interested to see this live stream now because of that. Oh, and even below that message, turns out there will be no other Smash character here, and of course Nintendo wanted to let us know that, so I guess people weren't disappointed when they just showed the ARMS character and then sign out. You know, we've been used to kind of the surprise announcements for Smash, so I get that, why they would just let people know so they wouldn't be disappointed. But then the question is, who's going to be here? Who's the new character from ARMS? Is it going to be Ribbon Girl? Is it going to be Springman? Is it going to be Twin Tail? That's the question. Maybe it could be multiple characters that are added. We'll see, but let me know your best guess down below, especially if you're here a few hours before the presentation goes live when this video goes live, and we'll see if you get it right. Also, Cyberpunk 2077 was, of course, delayed. We had talked about this last week when it happened, but there was a question which really came down to, if I buy it on the PlayStation 4, will it work on the PlayStation 5 straight up day one? Because if I pick up the new system, I would like to get Cyberpunk on it. It seems a bit more cut and dry with the Xbox Series X with smart delivery, but CD Projekt Red decided to put this tweet out here kind of explaining the situation, and they said, "We are happy to confirm that Cyberpunk 2077 will be backwards compatible with both next-gen consoles. Your PS4 copy of the game will work on PS5 on launch day. Anyone who buys the game on Xbox One will be able to play their copy on Xbox Series X when the console launches too." So this is great news. Again, the Xbox Series X seems straightforward there, but the PS5, good to know that if we buy the PS4 version, we can just drop it right in the system and it'll be off and running. You might have to download a patch, obviously, but it's good to know that this game will probably end up being a pretty solid launch title for both systems. Most people will probably grab it on the newer console at that time because it might even show off what the newer systems can do compared to the older systems. It's going to come down if they have any enhancement patches or anything for it when it releases. But good to know, there won't be any issues, hopefully, when you pick it up for your PS5 or your Series X day one. Oh, and for anyone who was having some issues with the Pokemon Sword and Shield expansions, because it was a little confusing when they first announced them, there were technically 2 expansions, one for each game rather than just like one expansion that would work between them, or it was kind of all over the place there, right? But it looks like Nintendo has realized this, or they got a bunch of calls about this, probably from parents who bought the wrong expansion. But you can see here on Twitter, they say, when purchasing the Pokemon Sword Expansion Pass or Pokemon Shield Expansion Pass, please ensure you select the one that corresponds with the version of the game you own. If you mistakenly purchased the incorrect pass, please contact customer support. It does appear that they are just refunding them or changing them out for you, which is good, because Nintendo's refund policy has been very spotty to non-existent. you kind of have to get lucky to call them and then hit the little refund button. It is nowhere near what something like Steam does, which is you can play the game for hours and still get a refund on a digital game. Yeah, it's so weird how Nintendo handles some of their refund stuff. But at least for Sword and Shield, they realized there may have been some confusion, or like I said, they were just getting a lot of calls and they figure, hey, we'll just switch them out or get it refunded for them. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start right away with Last of Us Part 2 and the sales figures coming out of the UK. Those are usually the initial sales reports that we get, which are out of the UK. Generally, they'll come out like Sunday night going into Monday. So that's usually at least an idea as to how this game could be trending in other regions as well. So let's go to the sales charts here in the UK. The number one, of course, Last of Us Part 2, no surprise there. Ring Fit Adventure at number 2, and apparently they had a 30% increase in sales, which had to do around just there being more stock, so good news there that came back into stock. FIFA 20 at number 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, Call of Duty Modern Warfare at 5, Grand Theft Auto 5 at 6, then Minecraft on the Switch, 51 worldwide games, Pokemon Shield, and then Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. So how did Last of Us Part 2 do in its opening week compared to all of Sony's other games in their opening week this generation? It did better than all of them. This is the biggest opening for a Sony game this generation in the UK, like flat out. Apparently it beat Uncharted 4 by like 1%. That's getting close to margin of error, I will say that, but like think of everything else that's come out this generation over the last, 7 years or so almost? Yes, Last of Us Part 2 is the biggest release there, and it's the biggest release of the year straight up so far, and that includes over Animal Crossing, which was the previous bestseller of the year with its opening week, which was ridiculous at the time. Last of Us Part 2 beat it by 40% though. Yeah, Last of Us Part 2 is doing pretty well so far in the UK. Now, of course, we have to see how it does pretty much everywhere else in the world, obviously, to see how well this thing ends up selling when it's all said and done. But Last of Us, the first one, sold pretty well overall. Of course, it hit 2 different systems. It was around for a while, so naturally it had plenty of time to sell. It dropped in price a lot. But with all the controversy around Last of Us Part 2, it does make you wonder if some people saw all that happening and said, maybe I'll buy it and see what everyone's all arguing about. And I mean, that's that saying, right? Any publicity is good publicity? Maybe that was the case here as well. Or maybe, I mean, most of us just figured, okay, yeah, the game is hyped up pretty well. Naughty Dog is, of course, doing it, which is like one of Sony's premier developing studios. So naturally, anyone with a PS4 is probably going to at least give this game a look to see. And then, of course, you realize the vast amount of people who are buying these games, we're talking obviously millions and millions of people, probably aren't as tuned in on like Twitter and other places. So they might just see it and say, oh, that looks good. All right, yeah, I'll go try that one out. So I'll be curious to see how this does specifically in the NPD sales charts, because of course Sony is having a big time focus on the Western audience, and that should be where they sell probably the vast majority of these copies for Last of Us Part 2. But yeah, turns out Last of Us is still pretty popular despite all of the online controversy and arguing and everything. People are still buying it. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo and their overall ambitions toward the cell phone market. They had started, of course, with Mario Run, and that did okay, I guess. I mean, it was their first shot at it, and they kind of rolled in being Nintendo, and it was super different from everything around them because they said, hey, this game is $10, we're gonna charge you $10 for it. And then I think close to the last minute, they threw in a couple of demo levels just to have it at least have some sort of download. They saw the effect from that because the conversion rate from people who downloaded the game to people who paid $10 was not great. So they then, of course, started going with the free-to-play model, and now it looks like they are just not as interested in the cell phone market as they were before, which seemed to have a lot to do with, of course, just the overall market changing around them with gaming, the potential for making a ton of money with cell phone games, right? And of course, the pressure from investors. But you can see this here. This is from Bloomberg and Takashi Machizuki, who wrote out that Nintendo chills mobile ambitions after Animal Crossing success. It's interesting, right, to hear that, because Animal Crossing has done extremely well on the Switch, like ridiculously well, and a lot of Switch titles are selling anyway, so rather than maybe look to cell phones to try to make up any revenue loss that maybe with the 3DS gone, them going to basically being a one system company now, which isn't normal for Nintendo, maybe they were looking at the cell phone market as being what would have been like their 3DS, right? That could have been what they were thinking there, but there were a lot of reasons cited here, specifically the idea of taking Nintendo IPs and putting microtransactions all around them, subscription models, all these things that Nintendo isn't necessarily comfortable with, especially doing it with things like, right, Mario. That was a big one. Throwing Mario in there was like, ooh, okay. We'll try this, I guess, Mario Kart, which is a very popular IP for Nintendo, probably their most popular at this point with how that thing sells, and just the overall, I guess, disappointing revenue gains from it. It hasn't worked out as well for them, even with Mario Kart Tour. A lot of downloads, but not as much spending. I guess they were just maybe caught off guard with that a bit, and they're looking at this now and saying, okay, well, Animal Crossing is doing this well. I guess maybe if we just continue to put more resources into developing Switch games, which, by the way, they should probably announce some of those soon if they want to do that. Maybe that'll work out better for them, especially with their evergreen titles continuing to sell overall. And of course, they do talk about how the cell phone isn't necessarily a piece of hardware that they can build around, and they don't really like the entire touchscreen, just that being it, right? They like having strange things going on with their systems, so it is a bit limiting, they say, for the cell phone itself. Now, they do say they might try a few other things with cell phone games specifically to appease the investors. This is all from Bloomberg with Takashi Machizuki, but I don't know if they're going to go crazy with it anymore. Seriously, with what's written up here and the way it's painted, it sounds like it's going to be maybe a smaller game, like the Dr. Mario game, something like that, right? Like not like a Mario Run again, not like a Mario Kart Tour. That one they developed completely internal in Nintendo, and it downloaded a ton, right? People were picking that up on their phones, but it just didn't make that much money, like at all. It made some money, but definitely nowhere near what it should have if most of the people who downloaded at least threw $1 or $2 in. So I expect maybe some smaller things from Nintendo. Maybe they partner with another company like they did with Cygames and Dragalia Lost, and that might be it for them with cell phone stuff. But we'll see. I mean, they could come back to it later on, but if you were someone who was like, why are they doing these directs for Mario Kart Tour or Dragalia Lost? I just want to hear about the next big Nintendo game on the Switch. Well, you probably won't have to worry about too many of those cell phone directs anytime soon. Next up, let's talk about Crash Bandicoot 4, because that's right, we are going to see it today. This appears to be part of Summer Game Fest, as it kind of leaked out through the ratings board. This was Thursday night last week. It leaked out, and we had full box arts, which you can see here for the PS4 and the Xbox One version of the game, which it appears that if there will be a Switch version of it, it'll probably have to wait a bit, maybe next year, kind of like what happened before with Insane Trilogy. Hard to say there. This is being done by Toys for Bob, and now we have a tweet from the Crash Bandicoot Twitter handle itself saying, tune in June 22nd at 8 a.m. Pacific time for Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time reveal. Official reveal over leaks, we promise. So we will see Crash Bandicoot 4, and it's going to be, I think, pretty good. I want to see the gameplay just to see how it's all going to work out. I mean, we've seen the box art. I already like the art style there, but we have to see it in motion and the overall scope and idea of it, because this is going to be Crash Bandicoot 4, the direct sequel, I guess, to Crash Bandicoot 3, or sequel to it in 2020. So games have changed quite a bit since Crash Bandicoot 3, although Insane Trilogy did really, really well, so people still like Crash Bandicoot quite a bit, and I'm looking forward to this one. And again, just a couple of hours, we'll have the Smash reveal, and then like an hour after that, we'll have a new Crash Bandicoot. And it does sound like, based on rumors going around right now, that the release window for this is like first half of October. So we'll see the game, and we won't have to wait that long to pick it up. I do kind of like this trend, by the way, where we see a game, and then it's like 3.5, 4 months later, we'll be able to buy it. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Batman game that it keeps getting teased, doesn't it? But also, let's talk a little bit about maybe what Rocksteady is working on as well. We expect this Batman game to be revealed, I don't know, someday. We keep hearing about it. It sounds like it's getting close, and then just nothing happens. They teased it way too far in advance, but there are now 2 URLs that were registered by WB Games, and check this out. The first one you can see is GothamKnights.com, which that would be an alright title, I think, for the Batman game that's supposed to deal with the Court of Owls and should be revealed maybe during Summer Games Fest. But the other one is Suicide Squad Game. Now, this is where things get a little interesting because there have been rumors for a long time now that Rocksteady was working on a Suicide Squad game of some kind, whether it was a live service, maybe it was rebooted through development. It's hard to say because it has been a long time since Rocksteady has done a game. It's been a bit, right? So there have been questions as to why they haven't been around. The most they've actually announced is that they won't be at events, but they can't wait to show us what they are working on. And I guess the big rumor now, especially with this, is again leaning towards Suicide Squad. I question how that will turn out, but Rocksteady makes pretty good games, so I am willing to give them the benefit of the doubt until I see it, of course. But if it is going to be a live service game with Suicide Squad theme that's kind of like The Division, that's where I get a bit concerned. But again, we'll see. At least it sounds pretty cool with the other Batman game, Gotham Knights. We can see how that turns out. But hey, at this rate, maybe we'll see it sometime, I don't know, next generation. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Herring saying, the web swinging in Spider-Man on PS4 was so fun that I used the fast travel just once, so I am really curious how it will feel to play the new game on PS5. Now that it's starting to get more and more clear, Horizon's next year, it seems, right? They've said this themselves, Guerrilla has. And I'm starting to wonder if Ratchet & Clank will be like February. I'm hoping that's a launch title, but it might be February. It might really be up to Spider-Man Miles Morales to show off what the PlayStation 5 can do. Ratchet & Clank was doing that in gameplay, changing between dimensions on the fly, taking advantage of that SSD. But if it is up to Spider-Man, I hope they do some really, really cool things with it. Very fast traveling would be, of course, something that would be pretty cool to see in motion, or being able to swing through the city very fast. Maybe there's some really cool action scene that happens and it jettisons you across the city and you don't see any real pop in, or there's no slowdown or something. Nothing like that happens, right? And it takes advantage of the SSD. They have to do things to show off what the PS5 can do and why we should make the jump from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5. So I do think Spider-Man could be a good showcase game if Ratchet & Clank has to wait till, say, February. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, it really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's The Last of Us Part 2 doing really, really well so far out of the gate in the sales department, breaking records, of course, in the UK, even over Uncharted 4. How well do you think this game is going to sell? And do you think the controversy has actually helped the sales? I'm curious about that one. Also, who's the Smash character in a couple of hours? And are you excited for Crash Bandicoot? Let me know, guys, down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.